Greetings, Andy here again, and this is my sort of regular monthly roundup of new releases that I bought in the previous month. So here we are, the beginning of September, and I'm looking at actually half of them, the 4 of 8 in total, that I'm calling the girls, because there's a link between them, and then the second 4, you probably won't be surprised, I'm calling the boys. Now I'm using the term girls figuratively here because, you know, we've got a couple of albums where the singers are fully grown up women. We've got an all-girl band, but as different from the Spice Girls as you could possibly imagine. Maybe not always in the messaging, because the Spice Girls were fairly spiky with their feminist messaging, but very different band-wise. And we've got a trans woman who I never realised was trans, to be honest. But you know, she's got a great voice and a great album, and I'm starting there. And this is Ethel Cain and Willoughby Tucker, I'll Always Love You. So this is she's been doing well, first of all, I ought to say that Ethel Cain is both the stage name of Hayden Silas, no, I need to read this, Anhedonia, I can't pronounce that, but also is the sort of fictional character for which this autobiographical series is written about, and this is a prequel to The Preacher's Daughter, which I bought last year and really enjoyed, it's part of a trilogy. Now, she's also produced an EP called Perverts, and I'm not quite, which I don't have, and I'm not quite sure whether that EP is part of the trilogy or just a sort of add-on. Anyway, this is a prequel, so this covers Ethel Cain's sort of teenage years. It's very different from, well, I say very different, it's still got that what they call Southern Gothic feel. But it is quite different from The Preacher's Daughter. It's less dark, but it's quite languorous in a way. It's almost proggy with instrumental, you know, long instrumental sections, and particularly the last 2 tracks. It's a double LP with how many tracks are there? 10, I think. Yeah, because you've got, I think you've got 3 on each side, and then the 4th side is one long track which lasts about 15 minutes. That's called Wacko, Texas. One of my favourite actually is the one before that. The last track on side 3 or C is a 10-minute one called Tempest, and both of those are largely instrumental, but with vocals coming in here and there, and I really like it. So if I say ambient, I'm not suggesting it's remotely like sort of synthy, sort of Eno type ambient, not that sort of ambient, but it is quite slow and relaxing. But it's I never find it dull or boring. It sort of keeps the interest going all the time. It's let me have a look at what people said. It's, yeah, so NME, so I've just had a look at, see what a few reviews have said. NME call it a devastating downward spiral suffused with love, noting how Cain closes the chapter of her artistic journey with a bleak yet beautiful record. It's soft, quite sonically, but there's also some, you know, as I say, it's quite gripping as well. It's even got a sort of dark pop moment. There's a track, and I'll put a bit of the sample on, because it's actually quite difficult to sample this because you've got these sort of long sections. Tempest is brilliant, but it's 10 minutes long, and sort of picking a 30-second sample out of it is quite hard. But there's a track called Fuck Me Eyes, and which I've read, and I sort of get this. It's sort of described as a glittery, doomed karaoke ballad that evokes Betty Davis eyes filtered through Twin Peaks. So there you go. In other words, it's a little bit weird, and in it her voice is slightly digitally altered as well. As I say, I'll put that in the sample. It's a great album if you like Ethel Cain. I mean, she comes from a Baptist, sort of Southern Baptist community in the Panhandle of Florida, you know, she grew up as a you know, a gay boy, effectively, before, you know, going sort of trans woman. So it must have been quite difficult growing up in that sort of environment. But it's not autobiographical about the boy. It is about this fictional character, Ethel Cain, and it's a great album, just like the first one was, even though they're sort of back to front in terms of the time. This one covering the sort of teenage years. It's as I say, it's a double LP. It's a very dark cover, and it's just simply in black vinyl.
And her high heels on, she's got her hair up to God. She's gonna get what she wants. Her nails are heartbreak red, 'cause she's a bad motherfucker, and all the boys wanna love her when she bats her fuck me eyes. She goes to church.
And so we move on, and now to Wolf Alice and their new album, The Clearing. This is their fourth album, and obviously the lead singer in this is Ellie Roselle. Let me check my notes. Roselle, that's right, I nearly said Rodzell. And she's got a great voice, plays guitar as well, and then there are three guys who... there's the band. I'll come back to this in a minute. You know, and this is really interesting. I mean, they're all there. It's their fourth album, but all of the previous ones have had great reviews. I think, am I right in saying two of them were nominated for the Mercury? And did they win one? I can't remember. I'm losing touch. I should have checked all this, but this is. You know, whereas I would have always described them as indie rock, you know, quite rocking, quite angsty lyrics and so on. This is much gentler, and it's much more pop, but and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's you know, whilst it doesn't have the sort of raw energy of those earlier albums, it sort of makes up for it in some, you know, really good production, great songwriting. You know, and they're still, you know, but I think it's a voice more than anything. It reminds me a little bit on here of the Irish pop star CMAT, without obviously the Irish drawl. It's much gentler in that sense, and it reminds me a lot of it's sort of very 70s in its feel, not exactly, you know, listen to it and think it's a throwback, but you can sort of get the sort of influences of bands like Fleetwood Mac and Queen, and even there's time to time, not so much in the pure vocal style, but more the song style of Kate Bush in there as well. It's got all of those things. It's you know, it's been described. Let me just check on all the things. NME called it a sublime evolution, and I get that. I think this is their best album yet, despite the others being really good. Took me a couple of listens, you know, because I started off expecting something much more rocking than it is. You know, it says, so as I say, NME called it a sublime evolution, marking the band's transition into their 30s with a sense of calm and clarity. It's described as a record that builds on their past while embracing slower tempos and more nuanced songwriting, and that I think sums it up nicely. It comes with a lot of stuff. Oh, I ought to say as well, this one was direct from the band's website, and this is an alternative cover. So the main most of them you will see will have a different cover than this one, and it came with an insert with sort of photos and the lyrics and so on, and slightly ridiculously, an absolutely huge wall poster. So there's the cover. That's what their normal cover looks like on the front, and there's the band. I don't think I'll be putting it on my wall. I'm a bit old for that now. And it's a single LP. There's 11 tracks, and it's on. Well, it's supposed to be clear blue vinyl, but it's almost a bit green. It's almost got that sort of Coke bottle green look that you sometimes see described. And so
Rebounds on TV. I'll be fine, I'll be okay. I feel kinda lucky right now, and I'm not ashamed to say I can be happy, I can be sad, I can be a bitch when I am mad. I wanna settle down, or to fall in love. And sometimes I just want to fuck. I love my life, I love my life. Sometimes I just want to.
Okay, so now we come to the girl band, and this is a debut. This one was the Rough Trade album of the month. So as with those, they're often, they're always a surprise, and this is really interesting, but bloody impossible to describe in a way. It's. I think this is the most genre non-defining, if that's the right word, album I've come across in a long time. You can't fit it anywhere. And the band is called The New Eves, and the album is The New Eve is Rising. And it's definitely got that sort of feminist manifesto on there. I mean, they sing, I read this, it's being hailed as chaotic, spellbinding manifesto that blends punk, experimental folk, spoken word poetry and mythical storytelling into something truly singular. That's a good description. It's a bit of everything. There's it's got a lot of violin, cello, harmonium, but it never really sounds folky. As I say, you've got a lot of spoken word, almost poetry reciting in there. There's a track called Cow Song, which and you hear the group vocals, and apparently I read this in one of the reviews. I'm not clever enough to know this, that are based on Scandinavian folk kulning, Kulning. I don't really understand what that means, but apparently it's something which in Sweden and Scandinavia, female sort of cow herds did to call the cows. So it's a bit weird, and they sing a lot about Eve and sort of like Bible stuff, but without ever being remotely religious, more challenging. They sing about menstruation in there, or I presume it is. They talk about the red juices flowing, and about being female and eating the fruit and being proud of it and not caring. It's got that sort of feel to it. It's just really completely weird. It's just so difficult to describe. I mean, it gets heavy in places. The band, they are a four-piece, and they come from Brighton. So yet another girl band coming from Brighton. There've been a few of those recently, and it's one of those. You've got to be prepared to be challenged with it if you're going to listen. It's well worth trying. But it's not an easy listen remotely, and it takes a few. But it's really, really interesting and very challenging. And it'd be really interesting to see where they go from this, because as an announcement of them being here, this you wouldn't want to repeat it exactly. They will need to move on from this, but it's really quite interesting, and it's on a sort of pomegranate red. It's got this pomegranate theme going through as the fruit which is given off a blood red juice, and it's on white vinyl. And as usually with the Rough Trade ones, on this one it's a bonus 7-inch single with 2 bonus tracks on, which you know, again have a slight mythical scene. Side A is Original Sin, and side B is Mother. So that was truly a fascinating album. Not my favourite, but fascinating. And that now. And now a real departure, and it's a band I think I'd heard the name, but didn't really know anything about them. And it's really a metal band, or certainly a heavy rock metal band, from a small town in Pennsylvania, which is named after a British pub. There's a place called Red Lion in Pennsylvania, and the band is Halestorm. And this is their 6th studio album called Everest. And they, as I say, they're sort of heavy rock stroke metal. It was founded in 1997, apparently, by siblings Lizzie and Ara J. Hale. Lizzie is the singer, and which is why they're in the girl list. And Ara J is the drummer, and then obviously they've got a guitarist and bassist and so on. And it's really nice. I came across it in a review, a really good review, in the Sunday Times of all things, by you know, a respected. It wasn't Pitchfork, where you can get some really strange reviews sometimes. It was in a very conservative. It was small c, you know, national newspaper with a very respected journalist reviewing it, and I listened to a couple of tracks and thought, blimey, that's really good. That's quite accessible metal, and I really like her voice on it rather than a bloke's voice somehow, and that maybe made it, you know, even though she's really. She's a great front woman on you know, it's an incredibly heavy heart, maybe. But within the constraints of metal, and this to me is metal, probably to real metalheads, it's probably a bit softer than that. But there is a sort of like the odd sort of gentler reflective bit, like you know, quite balladic in a way. So the closing track is called "How Will You Remember Me," and Lizzie in that sort of imagines her own legacy, but not in a sort of maudlin way. And that, but you've also got some standout, some stadium anthems. So one's called "Watch Out," and there's another called "Killing," and I'll put a bit of a sample of that on there. And you know, I really like it. So it's a bold and emotionally charged summit in the band's career, one that redefines their sound while staying true to their hard rock roots. So I don't know any of their previous stuff, but it sounds as though this is their best album today. Love the cover as well, great artwork on there. And then in the middle, that's the band, and it comes with a sort of insert with band again and the lyrics and so on, and somewhat sort of inappropriately, it's called Hot Pink, the vinyl on this one. So there you go. That's There you go. That's a quick whiz through my half of my August new releases. We're going to do the boys, in a few days. Another 4 there. Actually, 2 of those were released slightly. I think May and July or something, but they're sort of relatively recent. And again, another very varied mix in that, I would say. So thanks for watching. Cheers.